Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to RCI TV for the second half of the GT3 World Championship here on this Friday evening. My name is Ryan Gill, and I will be walking you through all the action for tonight's 2-hour race at Silverstone. And joining me alongside in the commentary box, I've got those words the wrong way round, Jesse, but hopefully you've got your words the right way round. It's Jesse Lee.
Hello, everybody, and hello, Ryan. Nick Setnick behind the camera is here today in round 5 of the Friday GT World Championship. Lovely to be back here on RCI TV. Hope you're all doing well out there and hope that Ryan recovers from that stroke he just had. But, Ryan, it is well, we can't ignore it, can we? It is wet out there.
It is wet. I have recovered. I think it's the excitement, all the rain that I've been seeing.
Indeed.
It's starting to get to me. And I mean, just to clarify on what I said earlier. Yes, 2 hours, 120 minutes, as Jesse Lee loves. The race length to be called. It's going to be 2 hours of racing here tonight for these guys. It's an endurance race within the championship. We've had those 30-minute sprint races. We've had the 75-minute races, but this is the big one, Jesse. This is, well, this is the one that, in theory, they all want to win.
Right, you are, Ryan. 2 pit stops here tonight. You must take fuel in. Hello and welcome back. Little technical gremlins on the back end there. We are back here with you, round 5 of the GT3 World Championship here on RCI TV here at Silverstone. I am Jesse Lee, still here with Ryan Gill and Nick with you, bringing you the 2-hour race here. Qualifying just underway. James Parker, the quickest in qualifying, a 2:05.844. Ryan Gill, do you think that time will hold up?
Well, James Parker, he looked very, very quick in practice, and it's carrying over into qualifying as well. Apologies that we did miss the first 7 minutes of the qualifying session, but we have got here in the end. And, well, you talked about it holding, Jesse. It hasn't held. Verstappen, 2:05.799. Goes 45 thousandths faster. So just as I was about to say, it's going to be a difficult time to beat, Christopher Verstappen goes ahead and proves me wrong.
He said, "Hey, y'all, watch this." Well, James Parker and Bouquet are dead tied for that position. That was second and third, and now it's third and fourth because Cody Pride has went to the top of the board, a 2-minute 5.472. Now that is absolutely getting it in these difficult conditions.
Yeah, so the conditions from practice following over into qualifying as well, and as you can see, judging by the weather radar, it's not going to get any worse in this session, because of course 10 minutes time it's expected to get worse. We don't have 10 minutes left of the session, but I would expect that these conditions will probably carry over into the race. The more interesting thing is going to be, will the conditions get any better over the course of the race? Cody Pride, meanwhile, he goes provisional pole. The number 1 car and the number 2 car sitting 1 and 2 on the grid at the moment, 0.3 of a second quicker. Cody Pride in the McLaren. So the McLaren on home turf on a circuit it really does favour, doing exceptionally well. And something that we kind of haven't really mentioned tonight, Jesse, is that, well, we have 2 big hitters from the last couple of weeks missing. We're missing both Joe McCauley and Ismail Lebrec today. Both of those guys signed out.
Yeah, they sure did. And it's always unfortunate to lose somebody, especially in a championship fight, because Lebrec had fought his way back into this thing. And of course, having to miss the round for him is going to be very costly to his efforts. But that's unfortunate. But you know what they say, as James Parker goes back to the top of the board and takes it to pit road, a 2-minute 5.283. Nearly 2/10 quicker than Cody Pride now, as the laps are coming in fast and fast and wet, as it typically will do at Silverstone. And I'm a little concerned that Verstappen there in third place. That is a big old gap, and it could be a long day, a long 2 hours in the office around here if you are not going to be any closer on pace than that. But you know, we talk so much about racing in the rain being the equalizer, but here we are seeing it be the difference maker today.
Definitely so. James Parker back up on top as we enter the last 5 minutes of qualifying here. Of course, as we were in the middle of saying a while ago, we have an extended qualifying session here tonight to account for the fact that it is a 2-hour race. 25 cars out on track, and we'll have to see how all of these guys can fare. Of course, 2 hours long, Jesse, like you said, 2 mandatory pit stops earlier. Only requirement is to take fuel. It's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is here. If it was a dry race, I think it's fairly obvious that these guys will be changing tyres at least once. In the wet, you have a bit more leeway with tyres, especially, you know, in these kind of conditions. But I suppose we'll get into that talk a little bit later on. We're watching Jardier here at the moment. Ooh, little twitch there, saves it. And Jardier wasn't looking forward to the weather. As soon as he joined the server, he had the "oh no" message pop up. So Jardier wasn't really looking forward to these conditions and not looking like he's enjoying them at the moment. He's second in the championship, by the way. currently sitting 11th in qualifying. Meanwhile, the championship leader, George Boothby, in 6th.
Yeah, and we will, I believe, see those championship standings after the qualifying session ends. 3 minutes 30 left to play here in quali, and everything to play for. James Parker, the quickest so far, to the tune of nearly 2 tenths. Now, this, I believe, Bouquet is getting ready to come across the line here as well, as we watch Simon Keeble look to improve their quickest lap. What will they have in taken? Bouquet does indeed jump up into the 3rd position. What does Keeble have out of 7th? We will find out here in about half a lap's time.
He's up by 3.5 tenths at this point in time, judging by my timing sheet, and 3.5 tenths of a second. That could throw him all the way up into 3rd place, and that would be a really, really good starting position for the likes of Simon Keeble. Of course, his starting position not as important here tonight as it otherwise would be in some of the shorter races, but obviously you do still want to start up front, and you want to start on pole because, you get access to those bonus points for starting on pole position that are on offer. Of course, additional points available for the driver that qualifies in pole position and for the driver with the fastest lap of the race.
Right, you are, and who knows at the end of the season how important those bonus points might be. Keeble coming across the line improves all the way up to 4th place, 2-minute 5.781. It was only about 5 minutes ago that would have been good enough for pole. It isn't now. I can tell you, Bouquet seems to be going faster. James Parker seems to be going faster. And oh, by the way, George Boothby for Sidemax Motorworks may be going faster as well.
So George Boothby, the championship leader, a man that comes in here today with, well, let's face it, the most to lose if he has a poor result at this point in time in the championship. Of course, we've crossed over into the second half of the championship now. We're 6 races down, 6 to go. And of course, we've got some incredible circuits coming up on the calendar, but we will get into those later on in the stream. Just over a minute left of qualifying at this point in time. James Parker is up on his time again. George Boothby, he's currently up on his time by just under 1/10 of a second. And of course, he's going to want to start a bit further up than 9th place at this point in time. Jardia has improved to 5th, by the way. That's definitely going to help him plenty. And look at how well the Aston Martins are doing in these conditions. I mean, they are definitely more suited to the wet, but you can see James Parker in 1st, Keeble 4th, Verstappen and Steelvason 6th and 7th. Then we've got Simard in 10th, half the top 10. Aston Martin V8. A couple Ferraris in there as well to boot, though, and seem to be quite spread out over the course of the field as George Boothby comes through the final couple of corners now. Up on his time by about 1/10.5. Will come up towards the timing line. I reckon this will get him maybe about 3 places. No, it's only 2, but it's up to 7th for George Boothby.
Well, Boothby basically restores where he was just a few moments ago before Jardier, Keeble, and Steelvason jumped him in the standings. Keeble, the first car to come across the line and finish their qualifying session. All flying laps do, in fact, count. James Parker, who's looking good, he's up nearly 3/10 of a second, Ryan. It goes back down to 2/10 as he's coming to the line, looking for a little late qualifying insurance on the field. Cody Pride has waved the white flag and went to pit road, but James Parker goes to a 205.094, 2/10 of an improvement for the Coach Dave Academy 888 Aston, and that will be a pretty darn good lap. I don't think anybody else is going to have anything for him. As we watch Bouquet is about even on his time. Don't think, actually, now he goes a little bit below. Looking like no improvement from Albin Bouquet here late in the session.
No, it doesn't seem to be. But the likes of Fabian Piffer It's up by 0.3 of a second at this point in time, and it was Piffet that we saw last week in the closing stages of qualifying improve on their overall position. And, well, are they going to leave it as late as possible again to improve on their position, gaining more time, losing a slight bit of time, going a bit too deep, but then getting nice and early on the power. Still losing a bit of time, though, coming up towards the line. Fabian Piffet will improve. Will it be enough to gain any places at this point? Yes, it will. Jumps up to 13th ahead of João Cavaca. But that looks like the end of qualifying. Valentin Barria rounds the final corner. He's slightly up on his time as well. Any improvement will send him further, but he doesn't improve on his time. And that will be the end of qualifying. James Parker, by the way, on pole position. And Jesse, I mean, a little bit of insider information. He told George Boothby in the public channels tonight, "I'm going to retake the lead of the championship." Well, he's one step closer already at the end of qualifying, as you can see. The final board up at this point in time. And Cody Pride, the same final sector time as James Parker. But unfortunately, the McLaren not quite able to match the Aston Martin in the other two sectors. And it will be James Parker that takes pole position from Cody Pride.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen that in ACC before, where we have a double purple sector, completely identical, very robot-like. But James Parker on pole over Cody Pride, Bouquet and Verstappen the next row. Keeble is the 5th place driver. Jardier, Boothby, still Vason, Belisane, and Samard, your top 10. And then Karsten, Soldatov, Piffet, Cavaca, Prendergast, Grant, Smith, Willamont, Azevedo, Trevelyan, and Clements, your top 20 starting order. And I will admit to being just a bit disappointed that we didn't see a big battle for the pole position. So my question to you, Ryan Gill, can anyone catch James Parker tonight? Because it doesn't look like it according to qualifying.
No, it definitely doesn't. But before we get into predictions and who we think is going to win tonight, we'll have a little look over the championship standings. Going into this, I did say George Boothby leads the championship. Well, there you can see 181 points for the Sidemax Motorworks Ferrari. Leads the weight from Jaroslav Honzik, only by 3 points, though. And then James Parker in 3rd, just sitting 10 points behind. So close at the top of the table. Philippe Samard, by the way, still doesn't have a win or a podium to his name, but he's 4th in the championship. Testament to his consistency so far this season. Milton Steele-Vason in 5th. Ismail Lebrec not present tonight. That's going to damage his championship efforts massively, as he's level on points with Alban Bouquet, 140 for those two respectively. Herbert Frischel with 126, Alexander Karsten 121, and Fabian Piffet in the Lexus with 105. Moving on to page 2, we've got Joe McCauley, the other Honda that's not present this evening. Hashtag ban Geordie in the chat on 103 points. Bel Hussein on 94, not quite cracking the 3-digit mark at this point in time, followed by Simon Keeble, just a point behind him on 93. Grant Willamot with 79. Christopher Verstappen with 77 points. He's followed by John Clements with 71. Konstantin Soldatov with 64. Darren King, his points are now showing on the standings correctly, unlike last week. He's on 62 points. Harry Conway, 44. As he ends out the second page, but Harry Conway has unfortunately signed out of the championship as far as I know, so that will be the end of his pursuit. Meanwhile, Svenchek with 44 points. Billy Octane also signed out of the championship, unfortunately. He'll take no further part. Then we have Valentin Barria, who finally had a good race at Snetterton in race 2. He's on 42 points. Cody Pride, by the way, on the front row of the grid. He's 24th in the championship. How good would a podium be for him today? Would do massive towards his efforts so far in the championship. Tavrayan, 25th. Then you've got Vanak, Daniel Jose Jorges, Dave Van Den Eek, Christian Lotter, and Ivan Shermatinsky rounding out the top 30. And then the final few drivers, we've got Azvedo, Kavaka, Houle, Prendergast, and Tompkins rounding out the standings. Obviously, Tompkins signed out from the championship, so there won't be much to see of him for the rest of this season. But just under a minute away until they pull away for the formation lap. Jesse, I think I guess now that I've read through the standings and I've had a bit of time to think over it, I can answer your question. Will anyone beat James Parker here tonight? I'm going to say no.
Well, because you took that route, Ryan, I'm going to take the high road. Cody Pride is going to use pit strategy and a drying track late in this race. Don't look at the actual weather forecast. Don't look at it. Listen to me. Don't look at the forecast. Listen to me. The track is going to get drier at the end of this race. Cody Pride is going to storm to the lead in the Macca, and it is going to be a world-class win for Cody Pride. And I just had to say that because I had to be a bit different, I think, for that. But yeah, it's really going to be hard for anybody to beat James Parker tonight. I don't think anyone realistically has a chance, especially with just how much time. I thought he ran a quick lap when it was a 2:05.2, but he had several tens in the bank. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is a wet start to the race. Everybody will be out on wet weather tires, and 30 minutes, 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes into this race, it is going to get even harder out there before it gets better. If it does get better, torrential downpour status here at Silverstone. And as somebody who's been to the UK, I can say this is completely strange. It's usually very sunny here all of the time, but very wet indeed.
This is just a typical summer in the UK. I mean, let's not kid ourselves, Jesse. I mean, I've been to Silverstone a few times. It has rained on all but one occasion.
I was just going to say, Ron Gill, I have been to Silverstone 2 or 3 times. I've never seen it dry.
I've seen it dry once, funny enough, and it was actually on the hottest day in the UK. Hottest day on record. No, it wasn't. It was in 2019? No, 18. 2018. It was on that day in particular. It was the hottest day in the UK on record history. I think it has been beaten since then. It just keeps getting hotter for some reason in the summer sometimes over here in Britain. But it was very hot that day, I have to be honest. And, well, yeah, I've only seen Silverstone. Well, it's only been dry at Silverstone on one occasion that I have visited the circuit. Always makes for some interesting racing, though, this circuit. You know, I mean, it's flat. It doesn't really... Well, it's sort of flat. It doesn't have much undulation to it. But you know what it does have? Plenty of fast corners, very technical corners. And it's a fantastic place to race at. It's one of the best circuits in the world for that reason. I myself prefer a different British circuit over Silverstone, but you can't deny the history this place has. And, well, this race tonight, maybe we'll start to add to that history.
Yeah, I mean, you know, disused RAF base, etc., and so forth, all the normal memes, but it is a world-class circuit for a reason. Passing, not a problem around here most of the time. Big straightaways, big runs, and weather today all going to play a factor. Looks like Verstappen is going to start this race from the pit lane. We assume this is either by choice, which is the unlikely candidate, or the more likely candidate is that they've done that because they didn't hit the drive button in time, I would imagine.
Could also be a disconnect, potentially.
Oh, yes, could very well see. We will have to pay attention to the 2-car Verstappen to see if they do launch from pit lane after they go green. Many cars, and don't get used to seeing them all, because whenever they start to drive in anger here. In just a few moments' time, it will be an unholy amount of spray as they take the final turn. Well, the final two turns, I should say, as they prepare to get to the GT starting grid. Glad that all of you are with us here today. RCI TV round 5 of the GT World Championship. Top two up front, Ryan. James Parker, Cody Pride.
Yep, it's about to get started. The longest race of the season. 2 hours here at Silverstone. 2x2 as far as the eye can see. Crawl up towards the line. James Parker and Cody Pride starting on the front row of the grid. And it looks like a decent start for Cody Pride in the McLaren as well. He's not going to try and move in onto the inside. And James Parker will take the lead as they go through the first corner and towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time in tricky conditions at full speed. Going to have to be careful. No incidents into turn 1. I'm glad to report we do have live stewards here today to make sure every incident does get looked at, but it looks like a very, very clean start at this point in time. 2 hours of racing ahead, everyone playing it sensible so far through the first sector.
Well, the weather is sloppy. The driving was not. Pretty pristine throughout the entire field here today to start it off. And a great start by James Parker for the Coach Dave Academy and the 888 Aston. And it is a British marquee leading at a British track, a British 1-2. In fact, as everybody pacing their cars out, getting heat into the tires. And something we didn't really discuss too much is, yeah, I think we all sort of agree that we feel that James Parker may run away with it today, but the weather is such, and we did see so much drama in practice just trying to make laps around here. You can't write anybody off. You have to be on it for 120 minutes today. Otherwise, you will get bit by the weather. You will get bit by this racetrack.
Number 59 of Tavrayan in the Ferrari had some form of accident on the Hamilton straight, and not entirely sure what happened with that car at this point in time. You can see the number 2 car all the way at the back of the grid, Verstappen. He had to start from the pit lane for an unknown reason. We'll try and see if we can find out a reason for that later on in the race as we go. But coming towards the end of the first lap, it is the man that put his car on pole that leads the way. James Parker done a fantastic job, done everything he needed to do at the start of the race, get through into the lead after turn 1 and then pull away. He's got a 1.3 second gap on the likes of Cody Pride already. So James Parker, he's out in front. He's in his element. This car loves these kind of conditions. He's got everything going his way so far. He just needs to keep his focus.
James Parker going for a max points day today, and he, like you said, he was chatting to the driver saying that I fancy taking back the points lead today. Well, he's done the hardest bit, in my opinion. Now it's just about not throwing the car off the road. And look at this, Milton Stilvason's windshield, in the 962 MSV racing car, just completely littered with spray. The windshield wiper, the windscreen wiper, depending on what part of the world you're from, going at full chat, attempting to keep up and just barely doing so. Him himself trying to get by the 666 Ferrari of Boothby as they go nose to tail into the chicane. And it is so treacherous out there, and it's expected to get worse. Ryan Gill, how could it possibly get worse?
Well, we're not quite in monsoon conditions yet, Jesse, despite how bad everything looks. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Honzik has made his way up into 3rd place off screen whilst we were watching Stilvason and George Boothby go at it. The number 39 Mercedes did manage to jump Alban Bouquet. That was down towards Club Corner, where it was actually into Vale where he got him before Club Corner. So Jardier moving himself up into 3rd place. Of course, he's 2nd in the championship at this point in time, and you know, he's not really looking at this race, for a win here tonight. He knows that he's not really going to have the pace unless there's a mistake from the likes of James Parker. So he's just got to do damage limitation at this point in time. And the fact that he's ahead of James Parker in the championship Means that if he can finish as high up as possible compared to Parker, he can do a very good job of that as well. Meanwhile, the 287 and the 72, there was something between these two. Valentin Barrier all the way down at the back. I did see him come in for a pit stop. Let's see if we can have a little bit of a replay to see what happened to the number 72 car, Valentin Barrier. His season hasn't particularly gone his way so far. And as soon as we've tried to queue up a replay, the broadcasting tool has said no.
Well, that does happen sometime. You will have to take our word for it, though, as Avedo
Oh,
and
George Boothby in the pit lane as well. So, sorry to cut you off, Jesse, but George Boothby, championship leader, in the pits early.
Now, that didn't look right to me. He didn't stop, did he?
I'm trying to look. I'm trying to look through, see if there was any sort of incident with the 666. I'm not getting anything come through on my end at this point in time.
So that was a 39-second pit delta, which means he just drove through, I think. Pretty sure that's what that means. There's 39 seconds on pit road. Boothby all the way down into the lower places. No, but he must have stopped because fuel is required. So
one liter of fuel per pit stop is the minimum.
So yes, so he did stop for some semblance of time, but there's no way he could go an hour and 53 minutes on one tank of fuel, barring a very short fill up. There's no way.
Especially if it goes dry, he definitely won't.
Oh, I see. So that's true. I don't know what George Boothby's strategy is.
In the wet, you can definitely save fuel much more effectively than in the dry. The power output.
But 2 hours of it, I don't know.
It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. We're gonna have to.
So here's what's happened. We've made it 7 minutes into this race, and already a driver has confused us in the booth about what they're playing at.
It doesn't take a lot to do, and we're just getting a bit of information. So Boothby did a 1 liter splash and dash to get out of a spray train. So tactical pit stop going on early on for George Boothby to get himself into some clear air so he can see where he's going.
Oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea. As the Porsche off in front of us, that Bouquet, I think it might have been.
It is.
Bouquet hemorrhaging spots here. That is not a place where you want to go off, exiting Maggots and Beckett's. You do not want to slow yourself down getting onto the straightaway. But that was excellently spotted there by the person in chat. So that's what he's playing at. He would rather be in clean air.
I don't blame him at this point in time. I mean, we're nice and warm in the commentary box here, Jesse, and lovely commentary boxes they are here at Silverstone. But I mean, it's absolutely horrible out there in those conditions. We've seen it from the onboard. The kind of spray that you're getting at this point in time. I wouldn't want to be following another car. I mean, everyone wants to be James Parker at this point in time. You've got clear air ahead of you. You don't have to worry about the spray from any other cars. But these guys, this is what's going to be concerning them. I mean, look at the spray that's being kicked up through, even through some of the slower corners. And this can really irritate you as a driver sometimes, especially if you're not too keen on wet weather racing, which I know quite a few of these drivers aren't. And it's just one of those things where this will irritate you. Here comes Steele Vason, by the way. The Porsche just losing so much grip through the corners that Aston Martin's going to go around the outside. Look at the grip that Steele Vason has compared to the Porsche. Bouquet just struggling to get the power down in the wet. Meanwhile, Steele Vason, look at this.
Going the crossover move. Crossover move down the inside. Looks like Steele Vason's going to get it done. Just like Ryan said, just so much more grip in the Aston compared to the Porsche. But all of a sudden, Bouquet now going on the offensive.
Well, it did say that the Porsche was struggling, and Steel Vason just showing there how much more grip and traction he could find in the wet compared to the Porsche. Bouquet demoted down to 6th, and, well, it's going to get even worse for him because now he's got Soldatov coming up on the inside to the end of the hangar straight in an Aston Martin. Is he going to defend that much there? No, gets put to the outside line. Oh, he is going to have a try and come back. He's going to have a try and come back, but no, eventually has to concede the position. So, Bouquet, who did so well in qualifying, by the way, qualified up in 3rd place, just starting to leak positions now. He's down to 7th. He's got Bel Hussein behind him now in the Ferrari. And I've got to be honest, I'm expecting that Ferrari to get past him.
Well, we're getting unconfirmed reports from our chat that Verstappen actually stopped in the middle of a track and had a collision with Valentin Berrier at some point. And we would love to show that to you on replay. We unfortunately don't have a replay of that, but that is very, very interesting indeed. We'll try to confirm that.
That's quite strange, actually, because the incident that we got reported was the 287 and the 72, and the 287 was Fabio Azevedo. So, unless there's a separate incident
that might be what they're saying,
that we weren't aware of.
It is very strange. Ryan, I got to ask you a question.
Bouquet.
Albin Bouquet in pit road. And this sort of leads into my question, in fact. If you were driving a Porsche in this condition and it was so good in qualifying and practice, but in the race, it had some very nasty handling characteristics, very loose, as Fabian Piffet goes completely off the circuit there. But let's say your car handles completely differently in the race. What And we are back live here at Silverstone for round 5 of the Friday GT World Championship here on RCI TV. Thank you for staying with us during technical difficulties, having a little connection issues, but everything all sorted on our end here. I am Jesse Lee here with Ryan Rai Gill, bringing you the 2-hour race, the longest race in this championship. It's raining. It's going to rain even harder. And I'm going to put my money on James Parker lapping the field today, Ryan.
It's definitely looking like that at this point in time. James Parker leading the way, 5.6 seconds as we're just over 15 minutes into the race. Like we said, apologies for the brief technical difficulties, but we should be fully back in action. And speaking of the action, seems to be plenty going on at this point in time. Prendergast closing down on the likes of Piffert. It's on the back of the number 22 of Alexander Karsten at this point in time as well. And don't forget Philippe Samard, number 42, Aston Martin. He's in on this as well.
Very much so. Well, the fight for the lead may be non-existent. Cody Pride on an island by themselves in second place, and Jardier, after that pass on Boothby, I believe it was, has settled in to third place, though Keeble right behind him, and this is the big battle behind them. Everybody fighting for the 8th place spot. Karsten, Piffet, and Prendergast, and Samard as well, all involved in this fight. Got to pick your battles, got to pick your moments, because more so than in a dry race. In a dry race, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to pick a fight with somebody, but here you have to be very mindful of where and how you do that due to the drier line on the racetrack. If there is even one of those right now, the whole track looks completely soaked, admittedly, but even still, you get one of those puddles and all of a sudden you are, well, maybe not facing the right direction.
Kieran Prendergast continues in his pursuit. Fabian Piffert just going a bit wide there. And the Ferrari right on the back of the Lexus. The Lexus seeming to struggle a bit more than I initially would have thought. The Lexus usually credited for doing so well in the wet conditions. Fabian Piffert in 9th place at the moment. He's 10th in the championship at this point in time. So around this position, roughly where he has been for most of the championship.
Yeah, and once again, just the spray. Imagine trying to go through Maggots and Beckett's yourself. Imagine trying to race somebody or several people in this case and have to deal with what is basically a squall line of rain and fighting the steering. You can see just behind the timing and scoring board on the left just how hard out of Beckett's he was actually having to fight that car. You're basically wrestling with it, and if this weather persists for all 2 hours, you're going to have a lot of worn-out race car drivers at the end of this thing, and especially if you're having to fight like they are. Not that you can see this, but this is Prendergast fighting Piffet for the 9th spot. Piffet looking at Carson. I would definitely prefer to be Karsten in front. At least he has a cleaner view of it. I definitely would not want to be Samard in the back, but I also imagine he's about, like, what do you reckon that is, about 7 car lengths back? I feel like he's 7 car lengths back on purpose. Everybody falling in line here, trying to do their best, their level best to stay on track. I have not seen as many spins or sort of off tracks than I would expect. We've seen the Porsches struggle a little bit, and we have seen a few cars go a bit wide, but other than that, very clean, especially in comparison to what we were seeing in practice before the show started. Everything looking and going fairly well. 7 seconds the gap between Parker and Pride up front. Everything going pretty much to plan if you are Parker. Jardier, of course, trying to retain his spot in front of James Parker in the championship, trying to get all the positions, as you heard Ryan say earlier. But everything going to plan. But we are going to go to some radio RCI for the time being. Going to keep you abreast of the race as it is going. Love me some radio RCI. Haven't actually had to do some radio RCI for a while. The last time I did some RCI radio was with Mike Jones, I believe, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The battle for the 8th place position continues. Karsten still leads Piffet and Prendergast and Samard. No change there between those positions at the moment. Tricky conditions like this, you definitely have to be aware of your surroundings because you cannot rely on your sense of sight at all in a event like this. You have to more pay attention to just have that spatial awareness in a very bizarre way. It's almost like flying an aircraft in a rain shower. You have to sort of rely on your instruments and the feel, and a lot of the drivers that are in the pack, especially the battle for 8th place, are currently doing that right now. And there is no relief on the horizon either. It is looking very much like the rain is going to start coming down harder. Now, I believe it won't get to a flooded state simply because at RCI we attempt to not allow that to happen. That's not something that it's not enjoyable for the drivers or us or you as a viewer to watch that. It's a bit too sloppy for our taste, so we attempt to keep it from getting to that point. But it is going to rain harder. That might create some ponding, but hopefully we won't get to a flooded state. There is no penalties being reported right about now. Daniel O, the man handing me the slips of paper for the day, but he hasn't handed me any. There hasn't been any. Not even a warning or a no further action. That pretty much sums it up. Ryan Gill called the start of the race, called it clean, and it was fairly decently clean. There have been a few fender benders, and just as I say that, Daniel is handing me a piece of paper. Hello there, Daniel. Going to have to see what he is writing in there. This could be related to the Valentin Berrier incident. I have to find out. I feel like I'm at the Oscars all of a sudden, and the penalty goes to... Going to give him a minute to type it up. He is typing up a storm. He's very vigorously typing this up. We do appreciate all of you sticking with us here as we are on Radio RCI. We are still at round 5 of the GT3 World Championship. I am Jesse Lee, and Ryan Gill is with us in the booth. We are attempting to sort out some of the audio issues that we have. And that is why we are on the sort of Radio RCI screen or the resume screen. Live pictures from the racetrack will resume fairly soon. Valentin Berrier is in chat. Verstappen had a sort of half disconnect, and for him, all the cars were still standing on the grid. He decided to stop on the racing line in turn 1, and he couldn't avoid it. So there was contact between Verstappen and Berrier. Berrier had a sort of a disconnection. He wasn't aware that it was just him, and there was unavoidable contact where Berrier made contact. So that explains what that is, and or what that was. We heard earlier that there was potentially contact, and there it is. Let's see here. Oh, and Daniel has sent me some penalties. Incident on the lap 3, turn 1, the 72 and the 2. No further action. That is the incident in question. An in-game bug Future reference, 2 drivers involved, park off the track. Yeah, we have a video of what they're talking about, but there was a sort of an in-sim bug that occurred between the 72 and the 2 on lap 3. That is the parking on the track incident, the half disconnect, as described by Mr. Beria. And then on lap 7, turn 14, incident involving the 122 and the 107. 5-second penalty for car 122, deemed at fault for that incident, and Daniel has retreated from our box, meaning that is all he has. And well, he's going back to his box, and he's kicking his feet up onto the desk, which means that there's not a lot else going on for the stewards, which is good news for them, because I feel like more often than not, they are the ones getting overworked. Rain still coming down here on the circuit. No major changes as of yet. Again, just trying to sort out some of the audio gremlins that we have. Bear with us here as we do that. Silverstone continuing to run in the background, and the race absolute drenching now as the rain has officially become heavier, and it is going to continue to rain harder for at least the next 20 minutes or so. So no matter how wet the start of the race was, it is only going to get worse. Valentin Beria has removed himself from the race, I'm pretty sure, but otherwise he wouldn't be in the chat right now. Anybody that has any questions for RCI about the race, you can ask us using hashtag #AskTheBox, and we will do our very best to answer those questions as we are here in Radio RCI. It's a shame for Valentin Beria, though, because he had such a great race, too, at Snetterton last weekend. For a driver that had zero luck all season long, it was a breath of fresh air to see such a magnificent race that he ran at Snetterton, and we were all hoping that he would be able to ride that into the next round of the championship, but was not to be. Valentin Beria out of the race very, very early indeed. RCI Radio here, taking you through now the start of the race and into the middle bit of the race. 2 pit stops required by all of the teams here. Several of the teams ducked out of the spray to go in to get their first stop done, and we're going to cut the remaining part of the race in half. An ingenious strategy that stumped us in the booth, at least. We were very perplexed by that, but Ryan Gill pointed out that actually it's not that difficult to make it on one more stop on fuel, considering the weather conditions. You will be saving quite a bit of fuel. So several cars coming in. Valentin Beria was actually one of those cars, as he's confirming that he pitted on lap 1, was trying to get out of the spray. George Boothby doing a very similar strategy. He's still circulating. Hoping pictures will be restored shortly here for RCI. Round 5 of the Silverstone World GT3 Championship. Had several drivers that did not make today's race that had fought valiantly. Ishmael Lebrec, the one for me personally that comes to mind. He was 13th in the championship coming in to Snetterton last week. He left well inside the top 10. I think he was 6th coming in today, if I remember the standings correctly. Well, he will fall outside the top 10, potentially outside the top 15. Not quite sure of that math particularly, but definitely outside the top 10. James Parker looking to run away with the race and is still currently running away with the race, saying that he was so confident. He was, I wouldn't say bragging, but he was definitely discussing in chat with the other drivers that he was after the championship lead back. James Parker was at one point leading this championship early in the season, looking to fight for it back, but Jardier hanging in there tough, attempting to negate some of the points gains that Parker has been making. Of course, points for the fastest lap, points for qualifying, all going in favor of Parker and Jardier in crisis management, or damage management, I should say, trying to park his car on the podium. Heard earlier from Ryan that, well, he wasn't very happy, that was Jardier, about the weather at the track. Didn't really look forward to this sort of combination, but despite that, going fairly decently. Just like to take this time to thank all of our partners here at RCI, Race Department, AK Informatica, Speed Labs, and Raceface for everything that they do for us. Appreciate all of their support. You can find all of their information in the description. Support those that support RCI. Oh, and Sim Racing GP, I almost forgot about them. Sorry about that, lads. Again, we do very much apologize as we continue to have technical gremlins here that are plaguing some of our audio. We're attempting to restore pictures and audio to you as quickly as we possibly can. We have our technicians behind the scenes scrambling around, trying to get it all working accordingly. For the time being, you are stuck with me, Jesse Lee, here on Radio RCI, or RCI Radio. For the time being, the 2 hours of Silverstone going on in the background, very wet, not showing any sign of relief. James Parker, your leader, by some very wide margin. Battles in the field in the minor positions, and not a ton of penalties being handed out. But there has been at least a couple of additional incidences on lap 8, turn 15. The 122 and the 107 had another incident. That's interesting. The 122 had a 5-second penalty for a incident a literal lap before that, but on lap 8, turn 15, the incident between the 122 and the 107, deemed a racing incident. Lap 13, turn 17, incident involving the 47 and the 64 car, that also deemed a racing incident as well. And what that tells me is that there was contact, but it was accidental and it was not very detrimental to either competitor's race. So they will continue to race on now, unpenalized. Obviously, the 122 had the previous 5 seconds. They will have the option. They're not required to, but they have the option to serve that penalty on either of their mandatory pit stops, but they are not required to. If they do not elect to serve that penalty during the pit stop, the 5 seconds merely gets added on to the end of their race. As we do now get live pictures back, as you can see, it is raining ever so very hard, as the 42 has a 5-second penalty, as well as Vanka in the 122. Now, the Philippe Samard's penalty was not reported to us as far as I'm aware. Was it not? Yes, it was not reported to... Oh, it just was. In fact, Daniel scared the daylights out of me, handed me a new slip of paper. Also on lap 13, turn 1. Incident involving the 10 and the 42. 5-second penalty to car 42, Philippe Samard, for causing the incident. One hour, 22 minutes, and some change to play. 7:46 a.m. and potentially a very, very dim, but still a very, very small glimmer of hope on the horizon. In 30 minutes time, the meteorologist tells us, and you can see it yourself on the top right hand corner of the screen, that in 30 minutes time the rain will lessen in intensity. Now, it will not stop, but it will lessen in intensity. Cody Pride 13 seconds off of the lead, as still Vason and Willamont are coming in to serve their first pit stops. George Boothby in the 666 came in and served their very first pit stop very early. I was talking about that earlier, getting them off of the spray, out of the spray. Still Vason and Boothby, still Vason and Willamont not doing this to get out of the spray. This is just a scheduled pit stop for them. Jordan Grant Smith fighting Clements here for the 11th spot in one of those Porsches. Hashtag ban Jordy. Let's see some ban Jordys in the chat for the GS Racing 120 Porsche. Lost a little bit on that corner. Now, we have seen already that the Porsches are a bit unsettled in this harsh weather. It'll be interesting to see. Grant Smith caught Clements once. Can he do it again? And finally, after very long last, a very sweaty Ryan Gill has returned to me in the box. Hello, Ryan.
I am back. I have returned. It's been a lot of troubleshooting, Jesse. I mean, there's cables everywhere. You don't want to know what the rear end of the commentary box looks like. I mean, I'm pretty sure the internet technician.
What does this green one do?
Don't, Jesse. Don't. It's working. Don't touch it.
Okay. Well, I want you to know Ryan Gill just slapped my hand like I was a petulant child just now. Jordan Grant Smith is coming into pit road to do his very first pit stop as he nearly takes part of pit wall with him.
Well, as we come back to the action finally, Jordan Grant Smith and providing us with some excitement as he comes into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Alban Bouquet He's trying to find his way around Grant Willamot at the moment. We've had a few DNFs whilst we've been away, I've noticed, Jesse. We started with 25 drivers, with 5 down at this point in time. Not even halfway through the race, so I think the weather has claimed a few people whilst we've been away.
Yeah, the most interesting one to me was that we finally got a verdict on the Verstappen-Berria incident. Berria confirmed that that did happen, and the stewards ruled that sort of a glitch that they didn't feel right penalizing anybody for, but just gave them some guidance in the future if that was to happen. I thought that was the right call by the steward, as often is by the stewarding, as we see Alban Bouquet trying to get by Willamot. Both these drivers have completed their first pit stop, and they are racing in earnest for position. I think this would be right around 9th or 8th after everybody finishes their stop. Perhaps even a bit further up. No, about 8th or 9th, I would assume. But the Porsche here for Bouquet in the 194 looks hooked up. Looks like it has a little bit more speed than Willamot's Bentley.
Definitely does. Alban Bouquet had, well, to say he'd struggled is an understatement after qualifying very, very well. Obviously, he's served one of the 2 mandatory pit stops that he has to serve, so he'll be making his way a bit further up the order once everyone else comes in and serves that first pit stop. I think George Boothby is the highest of the drivers that have committed that one stop, as Clements is now coming into the pit lane as well. So should start to see a few more people coming in. Of course, they do have to stop twice in this race. 1 litre of fuel required per pit stop. And it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is here. I would assume there's going to be tyre swaps on at least one of these pit stops, but I don't know, Jesse. It's going to be hard to judge. But the weather, like you said, in about half an hour's time, is going to be lightening up a bit.
Yeah, it definitely should be. We'll have to see here whenever that 30-minute window gets to 10, if there's further relief behind that, because it won't be very much solace to any of these teams and drivers if this is as good as it gets. I would suspect, kind of knowing ACC's weather logic, that it will continue to get lighter. Now, will it completely stop? Now that, we'll have to see, but to find out. But I sort of follow the weather logic in ACC as if it were a real weather pattern, and to ACC's credit, it sort of is a real weather pattern. It is something that you can mostly predict, and I would imagine it will sort of ease off a bit, perhaps even get a run in line, because that'd be better than what we have here. As we're going to go around the outside, Bouquet trying to make this stick. If he can hang here, there's going to be contact between him and Willamot, but the pass does get completed. Willamot probably won't like that contact being applied. And as on the replay here, you just see Bouquet going around the outside. Oh, there wasn't contact there. I thought there was contact, but I think Willamot was just trying to sort of diamond off the corner a little bit. So my apologies. No contact there after all.
That was a very, very good move from Bouquet. He was on the outside line and he made it the inside line as he came through Vale and into Club. And very good move from him. Looking a bit further up the field now. Konstantin Soldatov sits in 4th place at this point in time, and he's chasing down the likes of Simon Keeble in the number 47, and that looks like a that looks like a disconnect for the number 64, because every other car is still going on track.
And folks, he's in the fence.
I haven't seen a car end up in that fence before at Silverstone, but I guess there is a first time for everything.
I do apologize, folks, for laughing, but that was Monty Python levels of weird, and I absolutely love that. I've never seen a car get stuck in the fence. Well, actually, I take that back. used to play iRacing religiously, and it wasn't a proper race if a car didn't get stuck in the fencing. But here in ACC, that is a world's first for me.
Well, meanwhile, a car that isn't stuck in the fence is the car of James Barker, the 888 Coach Dave Academy Aston Martin at this point in time, leading the way. And James Barker doing a fantastic job of leading the way as well. I mean, the gap he's got on Cody Pride at this point in time is absolutely enormous. We haven't even got to pit stops yet. And he's got a 16.7 second gap. James Barker just leading the way dominantly. And I mean, Jesse, unless we're in for a very drastic change in weather conditions around here, I don't see this changing anytime soon, as Jordan Grant-Smith and Steele Vason have apparently both finished their mandatory pit stops for this race. Although, judging by what I've seen in the chat, #BanJordy went out on dry tires.
That's got to be false. Unless
that's why
Jordy,
he came in a second time.
Very much right. Okay, I read that as if he was trying them. What I think they're attempting to convey now is that he did that by complete accident, which I believe is the second time Jordan Grant-Smith has accidentally fitted on dry tires in the wet here at RCI. I think.
But potentially, I don't quote me on that one. I'm not 100% sure on that fact. But Jordan Grant-Smith, unfortunate if that is the case, if he has accidentally put dry tires on that car, and that's why he had to come in for a second pit stop. Well, it's horrible, but I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen to multiple drivers of a pretty hefty reputation around the ACC community do it before. In fact, Harry Conway has done it before, whilst he was representing an RCI team in an SRO esports event. So it does happen. It does happen, and Harry Conway's going to be quite mad that I've called him out on that live on stream, but it's a shame.
Harry Conway know where you live as well? That's not
he knows
smart
he
move,
knows
right?
the county where I live.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, Jordan Grant-Smith, massive shame, but he's still in the race. Probably not going to recover too many places over the course of the remaining race. But anything could still happen, of course, and he's just going to have to hope that this race is dry and that Porsche can make it to the end of the race on that tank. Although I'm not willing. I'm not too confident in the Porsche's ability to make it to the end of the race on that tank. Let's just say that.
Well, that is what he's trying to do, as Azevedo is attempting to pass Vanka. Vanka's got a 5-second penalty. We documented that earlier. He's actually, or excuse me, that's Prendergast. In fact, my apologies there. That is Vanka up there in front in the white Porsche. But there we have it. Prendergast is fighting with Azevedo, but I am being told that is what Jordan Grant-Smith is trying to do now. That second pit stop, got another liter of fuel and bolted on the appropriate tires for the conditions, and now we'll, fingers crossed that it keeps raining, and also we'll try to make it an hour and 15 minutes on fuel in the wet at Silverstone in a Porsche. Do you think that's going to work, Ryan Gill?
I mean, I'm not an expert on the Porsche. Definitely not an expert on the Porsche in the wet. I don't really drive it that much, but I know its fuel economy isn't the best. I would wager that its fuel economy in the wet isn't the best either. Maybe it can go the full distance. And Jordan Grant-Smith can, can recover something from this race, because that's what he's going to be looking for at this point in time, isn't it? I mean, if he can go the distance, it might not hurt his overall position too much. But I mean, it kind of will, because he's had to take tires twice whereas only you'd be taking tyres only once, but it's possible he can still recover something from this. He'll deserve a medal if he does, for sure, but Jordan Grant-Smith, he's got a lot of work on his hands at this point in time. We're looking at Jardier. He's 1.1 seconds off the back of Belhassain. Now, Jardier was up in 3rd place, Jesse. Back much earlier on in the race when we had pictures. No pit stops coming around for the guys in front of him, or for Jardier himself at this point in time. So either Jardier's been overtaken by Keeble and Belhassain, or he's made a mistake at some point.
Yeah, if that has happened, we did not catch that. The last that I saw, he was still in the 3rd position. I'm going to wager that at some point, Jardier has had an off or an incident. That car doesn't look damaged, but that does not mean that there wasn't an off. At some point, you can crash off of this track and just... you can end up in a different county, can't you? If you crash here, you can leave Northampton, is what you can do. But I think something to that effect has occurred to the number 39 AMG. But he is catching Belhassain back now, gaining about a 10th in that last sector. So... whatever, yeah, that car doesn't look damaged to me at all. Again, it is hard to see in the rain.
Apparently, word from the chat is that Jardier spun.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that happened.
He did touch the wall, according to chat as well. So props to the people in chat keeping us informed. Of course, in the booth here, you have to understand we see what you see, and that's all we see. So we are no different than the live feed. But
we have one screen. We have one screen in the commentary box window, but we can't see much out of that.
Yeah, especially in these conditions. But yeah, so that explains it. He potentially bonked the rear end of the car, and if he did, it doesn't look bad at all. In fact, though, he has dropped a bit of time now. But either way, still out there, top 5 position, no threat from behind. In fact, Piffet is in from the 6th place position. Here's George Boothby. He was the very first car to pit. Strategically was the Sidemax Motorworks 666. Was not damaged. Pitted to get out of the spray. Several cars followed, of course. And of course, Boothby still has the one stop left to make. Ryan, if you're in Boothby's position here, do you go to about the 1 hour mark in pit, or are you going as long as you possibly can to see what this weather is going to do in hopes that maybe you can have a strategy play here as he completely misses Beckett's there?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because George Boothby pitted so early on to kind of find that clear air. And it's hard to say how that strategy has worked out for him so far. I mean, judging by his lap times, his previous lap was a 2:10.9 compared to his best lap of a 2:10.0. Now, obviously, there are a variety of factors at play. Could have made a mistake. He did make a mistake on this lap, so he's about 7/10 down on his personal best on this particular lap. But it is going to be interesting to see where George Boothby ends up. He wasn't he around about 6th or 7th place when he decided to pit? So we're going to have to keep that in mind. Obviously, sitting 8th at this point in time, and judging by the drivers ahead of him, if they come in for a pit stop now, he is on course to gain quite a few places.
He sure is. And word from the chat is sort of what we've been noticing. You may have noticed we started with quite a few more drivers than we have now. When we came back to live pictures, Ryan Gill pointed out that we were down some cars. We've actually lost a few more since then. 20 cars left circulating here, as Boothby must be listening to the stream and has decided to throw us all for a curveball. He will be going for finishing up the final hour on one set of rain tires. So Boothby for Sidemax Motorworks will be hoping that this race stays completely wet. Otherwise, his strategy will come undone. And, well, I got to say, considering it has been an hour of wet, you know it's going to be wet for the subsequent 30 minutes. Just the final 30 minutes or so that is sort of in the gray or in the ether. We don't know what's going to happen yet. If you're not familiar with this man, well, this is Coach Dave Academy's 888 Aston Martin. This is James Parker, and no, he's not a back marker. He's just that far out in front. He looks like he's at the end of the field. He is dominating this race, dominated qualifying the race, and if I'm not very much mistaken, has the quickest lap as well. Ryan, you were not kidding when he wasn't kidding when he said that he was coming for the championship lead today.
No, he definitely wasn't. I wonder if he'd been practicing in some of the conditions earlier and seen his pace relative to some of the other people and thought, you know what, I'm going to play some mind games now because I can. But in all good jest, James Parker, exceptionally committed and, of course, very, very consistent driver as well. Always keen to hop around the communities and race wherever it's competitive. And, of course, it's great to see him out here as well, representing Coach Dave Academy. And of course, James Parker taking place in a lot of the other series here at RCI. He's racing in the Monday Championship for British GT. Also racing in the World Tour, and he's going to be making an appearance out at the 6 Hours of Alton Park and the 12 Hours of Bathurst as well. So, plenty of RCI action coming the way of James Parker and Coach Dave Academy. But you know what? I mean, looking, just seeing this car going around the track at the moment, he looks like he's on rails in these conditions. It looks unnatural.
Yeah, you're right. Ryan, it looks like he's not in the wet. We know he is because his lap times are wet lap times, but he just looks, like you said, like he practiced for this, like he has a dialed-in setup for this. He came to play, and he is being rewarded for being prepared. And he basically has the right car at the right time, too, is another part of the equation. And you're talking about James Parker. He does a lot of racing here at RCI. He does a lot of racing in general. That's just because he is a racer. He wants to race. He wants to be involved as much as possible. I say the same about a lot of these guys. Jardier comes to mind. I don't think there's a single day of the week, barring maybe a Sunday, where he doesn't have some sort of league or official race that he runs in. Man's a machine. He comes out and performs. James Parker, the exact same way. He wants laps. He wants to come out here and race and compete. And you can't say enough about a guy like that. And today will be a day, if he continues to go on and win this race, it'll be a day that he doesn't probably think too much of because he didn't really have to fight too hard for it. But to me, it's probably one of the more impressive drives I've ever seen in ACC to just pull away like this. I talked about it in qualifying. The rain is usually the great equalizer. Today, it is the separator for everybody else. On board with Grant Willamont here for Turn 1 Pro in the 316 Bentley, following Karsten in front of him to the tune of 1.3 seconds adrift. Somebody in chat didn't use hashtag #AskTheBooth or #AskTheBox, but I'll answer anyway. Asked, what is the pit delta here? It's anywhere between 35 to 39 seconds, depending on how hard you hit the lines, I would say. Because we are using the GT pit lane, so it is quite a bit shorter than the F1 pit lane.
Yeah, the Formula 1 pit lane feels like it takes an eternity to navigate. I would know that because I've navigated it myself many times before. I've even walked the pit lane, and it's a fair walk. through the Silverstone pit lane, especially considering how early the pit lane technically opens. It opens a good couple 100 meters before you actually get into the pit lane. So it does take a while to navigate through it. Looking at Jardier here, closing in on Belhassain. Just under a second at the moment. There's not too many drivers out on track that are that close together. If you look at the timing sheets, everyone seems to be separated by at least a second at this point in time, apart from Jardier and Belhassain. As James Parker is coming into the pit lane as well, I can see just on the top of the timing sheets there, the race leader deciding that just over halfway through the race, he wants to make his first pit stop of the day, and I wonder if it's just going to be a quick fuel stop for James Parker and on his way, or is he going to consider tyres as well?
I think he might fancy a compound, or not a compound change, but a new set of boots on that car. At this point, no reason to go, I mean, with a lead like he has and a car like he has, why wouldn't you? I think it's a no-brainer for the Triple Eight. Go ahead and put new boots on the car, and then on your second stop, consider what might be. I don't think we're going to get any relent from the rain here today, folks. 30 minutes from now, the rain is going to lessen in intensity, but it will not work in, at least in my experience, it will not work in a drying or a drier line at that point still. It'll still be raining a bit too hard.
James Parker took tyres, by the way.
Indeed. But that being said, if it does continue with the normal ACC pattern, which it is doing, we may get to the end of this race where somebody might consider putting on a slick tire or changing to new wets and getting better lap times out of them. That is always a possibility, as it's gone 11 minutes after 8 in the morning in sim time. Glad that you are spending a little bit of your Friday evening with us here on RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee. I'm here with Ryan Gill, bringing you the 2 hours of Silverstone. Again, just like to thank all of our partners that make all these races possible for us. Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP. All the information about those organizations in the chat. Thanks to all of our partners, of course. And a big thank you to everybody out there in chat as James Parker is looking to get by Kavaka. This will be the only car today that he has had to pass for position on the track. Joao Kavaka still needs to do their first pit stop of the day. An absolute dawdle for Parker as he gets by, retaking third place. But for all of you out there, hope that you're enjoying the race, and glad to be with you on a Friday evening. Why not leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy GT racing? Don't miss a single race. Come back tomorrow evening, in fact, for Night Owl. Come hang out with me in the booth. We have a little fun on Saturday night with the Night Owl races. Stay up late, as Hazamat Belhassain has caught Azevedo now.
Yeah, Belhassain catching up. Of course, he was being chased down by Jardier before he went in to serve his first pit stop of the day. Of course, Jardier now promoted up into second after James Parker's pit stop as well. And there we go, that's wide for Azevedo, and here we go. This is going to be Belhassain on the inside, and, well, Azevedo isn't really going to challenge him there. I think Azevedo realising
easy peasy.
Belhassain has already done one pit stop compared to himself, and there's not really much point fighting someone if you're a pit stop behind them, effectively. Of course, you have every right to, but realistically, it's not going to help your race at all if you're wasting time defending against a car that is going to be about 40 seconds up the road from you anyway the moment you come into the pit lane.
Something interesting has just occurred, and I didn't think about this earlier, but Cody Pride is leading this race right now. They still have 2 pit stops to do. Darren Pride is in the chat right now. Is that potentially a sibling or a loved one of Cody Pride?
Tom Bryan, meanwhile, Jesse, is lodging a complaint because Jake is throwing paper planes around. I think the stewards have got a little. I think there's not enough work for them to do.
Do you know what it is?
Actually, Jesse, I can see them from here.
Yeah.
They're doing arts and crafts over there.
Yeah, I'm going to actually make you a bit more angry. I'm in text communication with Jake the Bosmeister Boswell down there in the steward's attic. It's called the steward's attic. And I have a good authority that they've ordered pizza.
This is outrageous. But the stewards having a bit of a calm night at this point in time. It's probably the first calm night they've had for a long time in stewarding, considering some of the questionable driving standards of late. Something that isn't questionable is this overtake from Albon Bouquet. Made that look easy as, and I kind of think that was Azevedo again just backing off, knowing that Bouquet's a pit stop ahead of him anyway. Not really much point fighting him. Get on with your own race. But that's Albon Bouquet up into 9th place now in the Porsche. Going to be interesting to see where he is once everyone has pitted as well, because he qualified up towards the front, started dropping back through the field in the tricky conditions that the Porsche didn't like. We saw him all the way down, what was it, in 17th place, was it, at one point in time?
It was indeed.
So he's up to 8th at the moment. We'll have to see how many more places he can possibly gain through the likes of pit stops. Judging by the drivers ahead of him that still need to pit though, Joao Kavaca, Jaroslav Honzik and Cody Pride, I can only really see him gaining 1 position out of that, possibly. I think maybe he'll get past Joao Kavaca when he comes into the pit lane, but I think the likes of Honzik and Pride are too far up the road.
Well, I have just received perhaps the most heartwarming information. Darren Pride is in fact Cody Pride's father. Papa Pride in chat cheering on his son who is leading the race, and it gets better than that. We also have George Boothby's father in chat as well, cheering on his son, and it gets better than that.
George
Granddad Pride, it gets better. Granddad Pride and Auntie Carrie are also in chat cheering on Cody Pride as well. It is a family affair. Hello to all of you, to all the family members watching on their loved ones in the race today. And love having you here. Thank you for being here as well. And absolutely fantastic stuff. You know what? That's what I love about motorsports. It is a family affair, and very much on display here in the very waterlogged race here at Silverstone. But no matter, a very proud Pride family, that's hard for me to say, with their boy leading the race right now. And for Boothby, we talked about Boothby earlier. Are you laughing at me, Ryan Gill? The thing about Boothby is he may be in the he's literally in the driver's seat, but he may be in the driver's seat for a top 5 position at the end of this thing because of his pit strategy earlier. We're going to have to find out. I don't think it's going to get dry enough. He might have nailed this strategy.
That was so long ago, Jesse, that I'm glad you reminded me of it. Philippe Simard, meanwhile, whilst all of this has been going on, is chasing down the likes of Grant Willamot. And George Boothby's dad has been around the chat for a while, Jesse. I'm surprised you haven't noticed, or have you, or have you?
I'll be honest. I've been talking to the Pride family. I haven't been listening to a thing you've said, Ryan.
Oh dear, here we go. Anyway, as Jesse Lee continues the proud Pride presence, we see Philippe Simard still catching the likes of Grant Willamot, the Bentley, under pressure from the Aston Martin at this point in time. Cody Pride still leads, but he is yet to pit. Jardier has pitted whilst all of this has been going on as well. Jakovaka has just come into the pit lane. I did get confirmation, by the way, from Konstantin Soldatov that that was an internet disconnect. I mean, it was fairly clear on our end. But the moment that Aston,
obviously a spaceship, yeah.
The moment that Aston ended up in the fence, we had a good idea of what that was. But always good to get 100% confirmation from the driver themselves, and we'll continue on watching. 49 minutes to go here. A few of these guys, well, only one driver left technically still to do their first pit stop. A few of these guys already getting both their pit stops out of the way, and obviously George Boothby, he got his first pit stop out of the way very, very early on. And like you said, Jesse, that strategy could come back to benefit him later on in the race, but we'll keep our eyes peeled at the moment on Philippe Simard's Aston Martin, which just keeps getting closer and closer and closer to Grant Willamot's Bentley.
Well, Grant Willamot has to go super defensive here. He doesn't want to lose his position. Philippe Simard in the red Aston behind him. This is not only for position, but this is for position on the road. They're both level on stops. They both have a stop left to make. And oh, by the way, George Boothby is in the background of this shot. You can't see him because of the spray. There he is. There is Boothby creeping into this picture, and every turn that Philippe Simard does not get around Willamot, Boothby gains more and more time. In fact, now he is almost to the back of Simard now. And now he is to the back of Simard.
George Boothby, if his plan of those early stops is going to pay off, he needs to get past the likes of Philippe Simard and Grant Willamot as quick as he can. And at this point in time, George Boothby just kind of looking at this battle, thinking, do I need to risk anything here? Of course, he is leading the championship, by the way. Doesn't want to get caught up in any silly incidents. Cody Pride, by the way, coming into the pit lane. In fact, no, he's out of the pit lane now. He was already in the pit lane, so he's coming out of the pit lane. Every driver having served at least one of their 2 mandatory pit stops tonight. And looking back on the rear wing of this Bentley, Philippe Simard's Aston Martin and the Ferrari of George Boothby definitely not as on rails as what we've seen James Parker so far in this race. We haven't seen James Parker for much of this race, but what we have seen of him, he's looked fairly clean. But the rest of these guys, not looking so confident with their cars at the moment. The weather is still scheduled to get a bit lighter in 30 minutes time, Jesse, but I don't know. I keep looking out the window and it still looks the same to me.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since you and I have commentated a race this wet. Sorry, I get tied up with my words because Willamot went for a big old slide right there in turn 1 as they go through Maggots and Beckett's. And I was just going to say that about Philippe Simard. I was very impressed with how quick his Aston Martin is, considering how unsettled that car looks around here. But this could be the pass down the straightaway now. Simard's going to pull out. He will be on the outside, but that may not be of any consequence as Boothby looming large in the background. It's all going to be about who can break the latest. Late break by Willamot. They go back single file again. Boothby almost gets sideways, but to the inside goes Simard. Simard's going to stuff it down to the inside, get the pass done. Will he? No. Willamot stays on the inside. Boothby looking to make his own way through. Somehow Simard gets through, and completely sideways is Willamot, and Boothby's through as well. Boothby promoted up a spot, and Simard into 10th place. Boothby 11th, and all of a sudden Willamot goes from 10th to 12th.
Oh, Grant Willamot twice in the space of one lap, almost loses the car. Does very, very well to catch it. Philippe Samard, he's not going to hold George Boothby up at all. He's, you know, inviting him through, just says, you know what? You've completed all your stops for this race. Go ahead on through. I'm not going to hold you up too quick. I know that you're faster than me. And he's just going to let George Boothby by, and I'm pretty sure George Boothby will appreciate that. He'll go, thank you very much. And he'll kind of wish that Grant Wilmot maybe had that that kind of experience with them. But either way, Philippe Samard and George Boothby find their way past the Bentley. In the background, you can see the Aston Martin of Clements, and I'm not entirely sure who's chasing down the Aston Martin of Clements, or is that Frechelle actually, just behind the likes of Wilmot. The timing screen has momentarily gone for a bit of a trip. Meanwhile, Jaroslav Honzik, he had a bit of a trip earlier on. And he's sitting in 7th place at the moment, 1.4 seconds to Belhassain. So he's lost a bit of time to Belhassain between the pit stops, but still plenty close enough to catch down towards the end of the race. Less than 44 minutes to go. And, well, as it stands right now, Jesse, James Parker would take the lead of the championship. But I'm willing to bet that it's, well, the way things are at the moment is not how it's going to look in 44 minutes' time.
No, this race could still change. 45 minutes, the track could get that run-in line, and the dynamic that has been constant throughout this race could change on a whim. So nothing's set in stone here. You still got to run the laps. You got to run the timeout. And you cannot let up or lose your focus around here. Jardier, proof of that, was running on the 3rd podium spot and had sort of a spin, and all of a sudden now outside the top 5. All of the top 9 still have a stop to do. The one man that doesn't need to come in again and is hoping that it stays wet and hoping that they have enough fuel, I think they might. George Boothby in 10th place has finished their stops. And guess what time it is, Ryan? I have been doing some maths, and I reckon Boothby could be inside the top 5, maybe as high as 4th, but probably 5th, if he can go the distance and keep the pace he has right now up.
Well, it would be a good result, and it would show that his strategy has definitely worked. I mean, he was caught up in the spray. He wasn't enjoying that too much. Maybe felt he could go quicker, but just didn't have the ability to get past some of the cars in front. And of course, if you can't pass them on track, pass them in the pit stops. Next best place to do it. And George Boothby looking to take advantage of that completely. Meanwhile, Steele Vason, he's not had the greatest race either. The 962 all the way down in 18th place. Kind of running a similar strategy to the likes of Jordan Grant-Smith and George Boothby. Just try and eke it out to the end on the tank after doing the pit stops. Prendergast also in that boat as well at this point in time.
What I will say is Kavaka in 9th place, just barely in front of Boothby. And what this has done is this has helped Philippe Samard in that other red Ferrari. He is caught back up because Boothby hasn't got around Kavaka yet. Was reading chat a moment ago. Papa Boothby says that he spent his retirement on karting with George, but he prefers sim racing because it's cheaper. He doesn't get wet and dirty. And, well, I can't really argue with that. Is this going to be a radical move there, a twitch, and then all of a sudden the inside taken by Boothby, perhaps contact there. Can Samard make this move stick? No, he cannot. But position for the 666 of Sidemax Motorworks. George Boothby with a power move up the inside takes 9th place. What a move!
George Boothby, complete send there. Slight contact with the likes of Kavaka, but George Boothby was saying, look, I've got the inside, I'm going to come through. And I'm going to pull off into the distance. Philippe Samard not quite able to follow the Ferrari of George Boothby through, but he'll be looking to do that in just a moment as well. Finds himself right on the back of the number 33, João Cavaca, who hasn't had the easiest time around in this championship either.
This camera gives me anxiety.
It's horrible out there. I mean, look at it. It's worse than our commentary box window, but fortunately, you can see the rain light on the car. You can see the brake lights of the car ahead, and even through the spray, Philippe Samard keeps close on to the back of João Cavaca, but he's got to find a way through. Ooh, slightly riding the curb and getting unsettled there. That Aston Martin definitely feeling better than the Ferrari at this point in time in these conditions, but Philippe Samard maybe just a bit nervous, and I think understandably so. I mean, these conditions fairly harsh out here. 16 degrees track temperature as well. The track fairly cool, and Philippe Samard just going to try his best to see if he can get past the likes of João Cavaca. Of course, this is the position both of these drivers still have one pit stop left to do, so João Cavaca, he's got every right to want to fight for this. Oh. And, of course, João Cavaca, he has every right to fight for this, because this could be crucial come the end of the race.
Yeah, and he's not making wild moves as Cavaca. He's just putting his car where he has the advantage, and he's making sure that he leaves space when necessary. It's completely sideways. Samard goes there. I was going to ask a question about Philippe Samard real quick. Is that pronounced EGG or egg for his team name?
I don't entirely know, Jesse. Maybe you'll have to ask him on that particular occasion. Philippe Samard is, I mean, he's a fairly quick racer around here. He's up into split one for the Friday Championship. Sits fourth in the championship at this point in time, but he's fairly new around here to RCI. I think this is the first event that Philippe Samard has entered in, to my knowledge, or at least to any of the recent knowledge that I have. But tell you what, definitely proving his worth. Fun fact for you, Philippe Samard, no wins, no podiums so far this season, still finds himself fourth in the championship, and well, still in contention as well, as he's going to have a look on the inside. No, not quite able to have a look at João Cavaca, and that was close.
Well, it's funny to me. Samard's confused because he saw Boothby do that, and he goes, well, Boothby did it. How come it didn't work when I did that? Just didn't quite have the position there, but still, he does have a shot here looking down towards the inside. Is he going to try it here? Doesn't look like it as they stay single file. Well, we have the Cody Pride family, we have the Boothby family, and now we have the Boothby supporters in the chat. Hello and good evening to the George Boothby supporters, and thank you for your very, very kind words. Your driver putting on a show here tonight, passing cars up into the top 10 now. Going to be very interested to see if George can make this strategy work. It's also going to be interesting to see Samard be able to pull off this pass at some point. You feel like it's coming, but you just don't know when. Those Astons look just about as agile as any car out there in the wet. But, of course, like you said, the only car out here that looks completely settled is James Parker, some 27 seconds ahead of the field. Give a call to Cody Pride, though, qualified on the front row of the grid and has maintained his position throughout, leading in the middle sections of the race. And also talk about Piffet for a second in the 195. He has put himself in front of Keeble. He did that some time ago, but he is now the third step of the podium. Piffet, who fought hard early and has gotten themselves into that position. Keeble fourth, Bouquet in fifth. Jardier has moved past Bellassane for sixth, Bellassane seventh, Karsten eighth, and this is the battle of Boothby, Cavaca, and Samard that we continue to watch. That your top 10. And also, Daniel has woken up and handed me a couple slips of paper. Lap 36, turn 15, incident involving the 33 and the 666 deemed a racing incident. And I believe I have a duplicate on here, a warning for the 72, but I think that was for an earlier incident, I'm pretty sure. And if it wasn't, then it was another warning.
Well, Valentin Barrier no longer in this race. His, well...
So that must have been from the earlier incident.
Valentin Barrier hasn't had an easy time, has he? I mean, he's had one good race, I think, this season, which was race 2 at Snetterton. Oh, Philippe Simard having to catch that one. The Aston Martin... the Aston Martin not looking too comfortable at this point in time. Maybe James Parker, the Aston Whisperer. Is that what we're going to start calling him now? Just able to get more out of this car, perhaps. And, well, Philippe Simard hasn't seemed to cost him too much time, though. Straight onto the back of Jankovac again in the in the number 33. And I had a quick scan through the championship standings, Jesse.
Oh, baby!
Philippe Simard again.
A lesser driver would have crashed that car. You have no idea.
You or I would be in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the silliest thing. That again, folks, on TV at home, that probably didn't look major. I promise you, that is extremely hard to catch, and he caught that and barely lost any time. No wonder this is the pro split.
But back to my point, I've had a scan of the championship standings. Only 2 drivers in the top 10 do not have a win or a podium so far this season. Those 2 are Philippe Simard and Fabian Piffert. You will notice as well that Fabian Piffert at this point in time is on for a podium finish. So that may change. That may change fairly soon. But Philippe Simard, no podiums, no wins. I think all the... Whoa!
Oh, baby! Oh, into the dirt, Philippe Simard. Coming out of Maggots and Beckett's, that whole section of corners did not look like that car was planted at all, Ryan Gill.
No, we're going to have a little bit of a replay here. We'll see the perspective from the helicam. What exactly happened? Just got on the curb, unsettled the car. Doesn't look major from the outside at all, but from the inside...
He was digging. He was digging. He was trying to get to him.
From the inside, I'm sure that was panic attack moment for Philippe Simard, but manages to catch it and manages to bring the car back on track.
I've talked to some of these pro drivers, these esports guys, and the aliens of sim racing, and they all tell me about the same thing, and they're actually going to hate me for saying this out loud because they probably don't want this being said.
Oh dear, here we go.
They say that in times of crisis, they're very calm on the outside, but well, they're dying on the inside. And I won't say who said this, but one of them told me that assume every time they get out of sorts on the racetrack, they scream like, quote, a little French girl.
I mean,
and I'll let you at home guess who that might have been.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I look like that on the inside and the outside whenever I get a moment in the car, Jesse. But you know what, Triple R guys, to you know, to each their own. We do things a bit differently than everyone else. But no, I mean, some of these guys. I mean, you see some of Jardier's clips, don't you? And he's got the straightest face ever as he catches a car that's basically doing a 180-degree turn. And you can only imagine what's going on inside the head of that man. But on the outside, he kind of just cracks a smile and he says, oh, that was funny.
Yeah, there's... I miss having Dan Suzuki in these races because that man is... I'm not convinced he's human.
He has the smoothest voice of any driver I've ever heard.
I'm going to do a Dan Suzuki impression real quick. He'll have a major moment where he's weaving car style. He's weaving in and out of traffic in an incident, and he's sideways and he gets the car out of control and he gathers it back up and he continues and he'll just get up in the mic and go, "That was fun," and just keep it moving. And it's like, if I would have been, first of all, I would have been backwards in the wall, but I would have also been yelling at the top of my lungs and praying to whatever deity I believe in. But Dan Suzuki, Jardier, nah, not really for them. Ice water.
I give you a solid 8 out of 10 on the Dan Suzuki impression. That was that was very, very good. Maybe could have used a few more words, but I give you an 8 out of 10 on the accent attempt. James Parker, by the way, still leading the race with just under half an hour to go.
Speaking of ice water,
he's I mean, this man maybe doesn't have the smoothest voice in sim racing, unlike Dan Suzuki, but I tell you what, out here on track at the moment, it looks like he has the smoothest driving style in the world, doesn't he? And I mean, like I said, that car looks like it's on rails.
Yeah, you're very much correct in that as well, Ryan. I once you mentioned that, I just started looking at all the different cars, and there really is only one or two that look like this. And might I mention something though? Either James Parker has backed off the pace or Cody Pride has been able to step it up, because he has not lost time in the last 3 laps.
That's true, it is. Cody Pride has been slightly quicker than the likes of James Parker over the last few laps, and in fact I think Cody Pride is actually up on his delta at this point in time, up by about half a second, judging by what I can see. So Cody Pride may be finding some pace in that McLaren at this point in time. The rain doesn't look like it's going to lighten up at all over the next half an hour, Jesse. I think it's going to stay like this until the end of the race, judging by the weather report. So anyone who had any hopes of taking some dry tyres towards the end of this race, well, those hopes completely dashed at this point in time. Circuit firmly waterlogged. And, well, James Parker continues on his way. Cody Pride, a good 26 seconds back, 28 seconds back, something around that, but still looking pretty good. He's going to come up towards the line. James Parker did a 2:08.8 on that previous lap. Cody Pride comes across the line. It's a 2:09.2, so James Parker starting to pick up the pace again. Maybe listening in on the live stream, as a few drivers do.
Sim racers don't do that, do they, Ryan? They don't.
Oh no, I mean
they would never.
It's not like I've said something about Killian Ryan Meenan before and then had him type back to me in the YouTube chat mid-race. That's never happened before. I've
angered Killian, and I've also angered Wolf Matushka. Wolf Matushka was the first driver I ever saw get mad enough mid-race to be in the race, racing, and type in the chat, and he did it explicitly to yell at me. And I don't know if I felt very prideful or fearful in that instance, but Cody Pride going a bit wide there, but nothing too different than what we've seen from pretty much everybody today. Cody Pride, of course, racing for PPR Esports in the #1 McLaren. It's going pretty well for them. They are going to pick up a boatload, no pun intended, a boatload of points today. So is Fabian Piffet for Team Fordzilla in the 195 Lexus. They are also going to profit very heavily. But I say that, well, there's still one pit stop to go, and there still is 26 minutes of racing to go. The rain will continue to lessen in intensity, but it will not be enough to matter. I'm going to back Ryan Gill on that. It doesn't seem like it will get low enough to change the track conditions very much at all. But the top 7 still have a pit stop to do. Boothby and Jordan Grant Smith will be happy that the weather will not be changing, because their strategy depends on the weather staying the way it is, as Milton Stillvason, I thought he was going through the grass. He was not. He had way more control than that. And we're going to see that one more time. This is what I saw. We're going to see it from his cam. Again, in the spray, looking like Now, what was that? Did he lose himself in maggots, or was he trying to pull off a move there that didn't come to pass?
Oh, not entirely sure what happened to the camera there, but I mean, it looked a lot worse on the outside from our end, but never mind. Back to live pictures. Steele Mason, he's going to be on the inside of Grant Willamot, and that's going to be done fairly easily. It's the 962 makes his way up. Yeah, it looked a lot worse on our end. I think maybe the car just got slightly unsettled, but managed to catch it pretty much immediately. Daniel Montero, by the way, in chat, some drivers have personal assistants typing for them, possibly, and I would love to know which drivers get paid enough to have a personal assistant on standby. I can only imagine. I can only imagine what it must be like. I mean, Jesse, imagine being, let's say, Killian Ryan Meenan's personal assistant, to type in the YouTube chat whatever his thoughts are at any point in time as he listens back to the stream.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know that nobody would ever take that job for me because I would never shut up. I don't mind talking and driving, and we had that race the other week where at Donington, the sort of introduction to Donington, where we had several drivers talking and driving at the same time. They even joined the booth while driving. It was a first for RCI. It was a bit chaotic, but it's very strange. They managed to type out completely normal sentences with no grammatical errors, and also, think about this, folks, leave the chat that they were in, join a Discord that they weren't in, join the chat that they were not in, and talk and drive at the same time. And one of those drivers that joined us won that race.
You had Killian and Gergo, was it? Join you guys in the box?
There was one other as well, and I do very much hate that I'm forgetting. Was that Darren King? Was that Darren with us? I think it might have been.
I don't know. I just know that you had a couple of visitors in the box. Meanwhile, #BanJordy apparently has a bunch of minions to do his typing.
I love the BanJordy chat, because I thought whenever he did get removed from that one race due to him accidentally being on Wi-Fi, I thought we were going to be crucified, but they thought that was funny. I mean, it's unfortunate for Jordan Grant Smith, and it's not a decision that the sanctioning body here at RCI would take very lightly. Obviously, it was Mike Noble. That's right. Thank you, Sebastian. It was not Darren King. It was Mike Noble who joined us mid-race at Donington. Thank you all. Yeah, I thought the BanJordy crowd was going to absolutely crucify us, as Philippe Samard has still not gotten by João Cavaca, but he may have the run now. Thinks better of it. He's being very timid, as Philippe Samard. You have to admit, Ryan?
I think Philippe Samard may be looking at the bigger picture. He knows he's fourth in the championship. Maybe don't want to get, don't throw away another top 10 finish at this point in time. 21 minutes of the race to go. I mean, I don't really think, besides João Cavaca, I don't think he'll be gaining any more places. But maybe just don't risk an accident for a couple of extra points. Just preserve what you have at this point in time, and look forward to the next race possibly. And Philippe Samard not diving up on the inside of João Cavaca, just going to take his time. Of course, he'll have 20 minutes left to do this move, but the longer he stays behind João Cavaca, the more confident João Cavaca is going to be in defending. Once you've figured out all the places where a driver is quicker than you and you can position the car in the right place at the right time, it becomes increasingly more difficult to get past. And you can kind of see that here. Philippe Samard, he just, wherever that Aston Martin seems to find grip, João Cavaca just knows where to put the car in the right place at the right time. just frustrating Philippe Simard slightly.
Well, Fabian Piffet is the first to blink inside the top 10. He comes down and finishes his final mandatory pit stop. And, well, is this the pass? Philippe Simard trying to go around the outside in maggots. No, it will not work. And once again, single file they go. So...
Oh, that's Piffet. That's Piffet right behind them.
That is Piffet right behind them.
This is going to be interesting now, because Piffet's potentially on for a podium, and now he's got two cars fighting for position in front of him.
So about that, as Simard tries to go around the outside, will this work? He actually has good position here if he can hold this, but he can't. Actually, he may still have the position down into the chicane. In fact, he does still. He's going to force it down in there. He's going to get a clean pass overtake. Watch out in back for the Lexus, nothing doing. And finally, at long last in relief, after 25 minutes thereabout, of trying, Philippe Simard gets by João Cavaca, and now Fabian Piffet has all of that work to do. Hopefully he was watching and taking notes, but you were talking about Piffet being on the podium. I've been doing some more maths, and I have determined I think George Boothby might fill out the third spot of the podium here today, if he makes it and if his tires do not give up in the last 5 minutes.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? And if it is a podium for George Boothby, it will make James Parker's job of taking the championship lead even harder. But James Parker, probably not worrying about that at this point in time. He's 30 seconds up the road from second place. Not too bothered. Jardier, meanwhile, made his way past the likes of Simon Keeble. So he's effectively in a provisional third place at this point in time. Fabian Piffet now, who was in third place, he's got to find his way around some of these guys, unless maybe he doesn't have the pace, and they're just going to pull away from him. João Cavaca went very, very wide at turn 1, catching up to the back of Philippe Simard, and this is the situation you don't want to be in. You know, it's so frustrating. You've finished your mandatory pit stops. You've got cars ahead of you that you're not racing for a position come the end of the race, because they still have to do a pit stop. But you know, they don't have to move over for you. This is still a race for position, technically on track, even if it will be nullified the moment they come into the pit lane. So for Fabian Piffet, I've been in this situation before. It's so frustrating, and judging by the look of it, ooh, João Cavaca maybe just easing off there a bit too late. He was
paying attention to Philippe Simard, Ryan.
So Fabian Piffet goes through. He'll be thankful to finally get through, and he sees Philippe Simard just up the road, who will be hoping will be a bit more generous in letting him by.
Well, 16 minutes and some change to play. 8:52 a.m. in sim time. Round 5 of the RCI GT3 World Championship here on RCI TV. Glad to have you all with us. It has been a wet and wild affair. Fairly clean affair as well, as we've had less than 10 steward investigations. I'm Jesse Lee here with Ryan Gill. If you're enjoying the race so far, what happens here on the replay?
I think this was our replay trying to find the overtake from Bel Hussein on Simon Keeble, but I think the replay.
I see.
I think the replay function has kind of given up today.
It's got a little water in it. Do you think?
I think considering the technical difficulties we've had today, the replay's not working is the least of our troubles.
So, on that note, thank you for bearing with us today. We hope that you've enjoyed today's broadcast thus far, and if you have, why not leave a like and subscribe to RCI TV? We have GT3 racing most nights of the week, including tomorrow night for the Night Out Championship. And of course, on Monday, Ryan Gill with you hosting the Monday Championship. and then on and so forth. And of course, we'd like to thank all of our partners that make this race and every race possible: Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface, Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP. More information about them in the description. And once again, there's been a lot to like about this race, Ryan. It has been fairly clean, and we have seen a ton of passing in tricky conditions. And I think that's worth a like and subscribe, don't you?
I think it is, but obviously it's up to the lovely viewers to decide that for us. But like I said, we do appreciate everyone sticking out. We especially appreciate you guys sticking through what I think was about 20 minutes of technical difficulties, was it? Maybe a bit longer than that?
Listen, I go into radio RCI mode, and I just, it's like...
I'm glad you went into radio RCI mode. I was in pull cables at the back of the PC
mode. You ducked under the table, and I was confused.
I mean, I've taken more cables out today than I think I have in my entire IT career, and whilst all that's going on, Milton Stilvason making his way past Herbert Frischel in the lone NSX out here today. The 86 is going to have a look back on the inside. The Aston Martin going to go very, very wide, come back on the track ahead, though.
I'm certainly jinxing it by saying it, Ryan, but I will say it. We've not had a single track limits penalty here today. The dreaded drive-through or the speeding in pit lane infringement, the dreaded stop-go 30, neither one of those have made an appearance today. And if we were to make it, what happens to the 666 here?
I think I've just been told that George Boothby apparently did a 360 spin. I'm hoping that the replay has at least caught this one. If that it
looks under control here.
If that is to be the case, I'm not entirely sure if the replay has caught this.
Now, it is George Boothby, can we be certain it was an incident? It could have been a swag strat by George. He has been known to do that from time to time and show off, but doesn't. Okay,
nah, this
so
doesn't look
doesn't
look like the replay's gone back far enough, it would seem. But apparently George Boothby doing a 360. Unfortunately, not able to catch it. The replay only goes back a minute, so if it happened over a minute ago, unfortunately, yeah, the replay hasn't quite been able to catch it. But George Boothby.
The thing is, he's still only 2.2 seconds behind Karsten. So even if it was, he lost minimal time doing it, which, I don't know, can he teach me how to do that? I don't understand how you spin and you lose such very little time, especially on a racetrack as wet as this, and especially a racetrack where if you do spin, you typically spin off for, well, like I say, you normally leave Northampton, but not the case for George Boothby for Sidemax Motorworks. Whatever did occur, minimum time lost. James Parker still leading, 33.3 seconds the gap, first to second. Cody Pride in second. Jardier has assumed the third spot for now. And Bellassane, Keeble, Karsten, Boothby, Samard, Piffet, Kavaka, your top 10, but that is very tangible and will change. Boothby and Piffet have already pitted, and they stand to gain a bit majorly. This man right here trying to fight his way back up to Karsten into the 6th place, could be potentially on for a podium, playing the long game today. I love race strategy. I love mandatory pit stops because you get all sorts of strategy and you don't know what you actually have until the end. It's the Forrest Gump effect.
Does always make things interesting. Of course, it's a fine line to find, isn't it? Because a lot of the drivers we hear, a lot of the time they say, oh, we don't want static conditions, but then they say to us, well, we don't want crazy conditions. You've got to kind of try and find a fine line between that. We think we've got it pretty close here at RCI. A lot of people seem to enjoy the changeable conditions that seem to happen throughout some of our races. I mean, the Kyle Army 24 hour was, I think, one of the best races I've seen in terms of changeable weather. It was absolutely fantastic, and we can only hope that we get to see some more races like that in the future. Jesse, I mean, I've heard, and this is only a rumor. I've heard this. Rumors. I've heard there's a possibility there will be light rain chance at Mount Panorama for the 12-hour.
Yeah, so about that, we here at RCI,
we love
like
pain.
To... Well, that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is we like to challenge ourselves and each other. And what is more challenging than a wet mountain road for any period of time that is invariably changeable and unpredictable when and where it might happen?
Of course, the Bathurst 12-hour will also be a bit interesting as well, because we'll have multi-class racing. There'll be GT4 cars on the grid as well for that race. I myself have managed to confirm an entry spot for the for the invitational split in the GT4. There are still spots open for that, by the way. If you can find yourself of a medium to alien pace level, medium pro to alien pace level, you can still get yourself involved in the GT4 class. I think we've got 10 cars confirmed at the moment for the GT4 class, and possibly another 2 coming on board sometime over the next couple of days, considering a conversation I had just before the race. So we could be seeing close to a 15-car field for GT4, and I've heard there's a Maserati, Jesse. There's going to be a Maserati on the mountain.
Do you know there's no traction control on that, right?
I know. It's
no ABS either.
It's mental, and
they're going to drive a no ABS, no traction control Maserati at the mountain. Are they insane?
It's. I mean, the answer to that question is obviously yes. It's got James Parker, Joe McCauley, Charlie Crossland, and Ryan Meenan in the car.
Are you kidding me?
That's the lineup in the Maserati. I'm not kidding you. It's an unbelievable lineup, and they've gone for one of the strangest car choices ever. But it's going to be a great watch. Of course, the 12 Hours of Bathurst, that's coming up in 2 weeks' time, everyone. Not too long until we get that race underway. Next week, we'll have the 3 Hours of Donington as part of the World Tour event. Carsten's come into the pit lane just now, I've just noticed. So we've got the 3 Hours of Donington Park coming up fairly soon. Of course, 12 Hours of Bathurst in 2 weeks' time. We've got Alton Park coming up soon. The GT4 6-hour endurance race. We've also got a charity race coming up soon as well. Can't fully give away any details on that one at this point in time. All I've been told is Jesse Lee is not allowed to look at the team names or team compositions.
So here's a problem with that.
You've already done that.
I knew who they were before they were a thing. I was in that conversation when it happened. So telling me not to be there, you'd have to go back 2 weeks in the past and tell me not to. I was there. As a matter of fact, I decided that I could not be in the race, which I originally was going to, simply because all the normal commentators signed up to race. So I'm going to commentate, and I am going to, let's just say, Ryan, I might have your parents' phone number, and I might call them mid-race.
Well, I mean, embarrassment if ever there was one. They'll tell me how much they don't enjoy watching my commentary, as is often the case. But back to the action at hand. We will also have an April Fool's race coming up fairly soon as well. Details on that. The 24 Hours of Spa April Fool's race, as Cody Pride comes into the pit lane to finish his final pit stop of the day. So plenty more. You can check out the Discord, by the way. Link in the description to this stream. Join our Discord. We're over 5,000 members now, Jesse, in the RCI
Indeed.
Discord. It's absolutely amazing what we've been able to build from the ashes 10 months ago. Jesse, 10 months ago, RCI was founded. We're coming up on a one year anniversary soon, and we're going to have to do something special for that as well, I feel.
I think you're right. I think we're going to have a absolute blowout of a party, and why not do it at a racetrack? And folks, if you're sitting here in chat and you're thinking, oh, well, that's great, but I am not an alien. I am nowhere near that pace. Don't worry about that. RCI has you covered from just starting out to the very top of eSport Caliber Driver. We have a race and a split for you. Join the Discord in the description. Join us. We'll get you into a race and get you on track, and no matter what your skill level. And again, we stream the top split, but that is only, well, it's usually about an eighth of the story, and very much so. So go ahead, get involved. No matter what your skill level, we have racing for you. And coming in to the final moments, as you saw Cody Pride pit, James Parker now in pit lane for the final stop. Been easy going for the 888, but he did pass some cars after his initial stop.
That'll just be a 1 liter of fuel going in that car, I imagine.
Yeah, didn't change tires on the Coach Dave Academy 888. Comes back out, fairly standard stuff, no penalty, clean and good to go to the finish. The only thing not clean is the paint job on that car. It has been wet, and that means the cars do get very, very dirty. I so dearly love the detail in ACC. Only Jardier and Bellasane left to pit. Looks like Boothby is going to get to 4th place today. He will appear like he might, actually no, he might still get to 3rd, as Bellasane does drop down into pit road. Interesting that Soldatov, and I just noticed this, right? Soldatov has not registered a pit stop yet, though he is in pit lane now. So he's going to have to make an additional stop in 3 minutes time.
Well, I think he's the driver that disconnected earlier on in the race. I think he's
correct.
reconnected. I think it's reconnected now just to count as a finisher.
You're very correct.
Which is fair. Which is fair enough. I don't think there'll be any issues with that. Someone's asking for a dad's race. Maybe we could do that at some point.
I am going to talk to Mike Jones this weekend. I would love a dad's race. Dads, granddads. Actually, could we just get...
We just do relatives.
I was going to say, can we just get a relatives of top split drivers race, have them be coached by their children or grandchildren?
I want to see
what that looks like.
I want to see Killian Ryan Meenan's dad. I want to know where the heritage comes from of sim racing excellence.
You're absolutely right. Killian and Cormac do not get as fast as they are without having something in their blood. Like, they are insanely quick as well. But I think we should do that. I think we should do a relatives of aliens race. That I would absolutely love that, and have all of the family that wish to participate in there. That would be a great sort of affair to have. I am going to talk to Mike Jones about doing something like that. Of course, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and all that. Would love to see something like that. Jardier, the odd man out, has not completed their final pit stop, but here he comes in the Yes Heat 39. Will complete their final pit stop. I will be interested to see where the 39 does shake out. Here is George Boothby for Sidemax Motorworks.
He's going to go to 3rd. It's going to happen. There's no way Jardier is going to get out of the pit lane before this, I don't think.
Oh, yeah,
Jardier
absolutely.
has stopped
indeed.
now, yeah, so he's not going to get restarted. So George Boothby up into 3rd place. The strategy has paid off as we come into the final.
He was last?
He was last. he was last after he pitted very, very early, but the strategy, it's paid off, and George Boothby has found his way up into 3rd place. We await the timing board to update. There it goes. Cody Pride now in 2nd place. And George Boothby about to cross the timing line at the end of Sector 1, and that will show him as third place. It'll be interesting to see how this reflects in the standings. James Parker was 10 points behind George Boothby. As we came into this race, Parker took pole position. I dare say he's got the fastest lap of the race as well. 2:07.5 for James Parker. As I look down the order, I don't see anyone with a quicker lap out there today. Cody Pride comes the closest. But James Parker will be picking up all the bonus points for this race today, and he's going to pick up the full sweep. It's a win, it's a pole, it's fastest lap. It's a hat trick for James Parker, crosses the line. And a fantastic result for the Triple Eight. James Parker came here with one goal today, and that was to take the lead of the championship come the end of this race. I think he's done so, especially with those bonus points. Cody Pride, he's going to make his way around the final few corners for a second place. It's going to be a brilliant performance from the number 1 McLaren. Hasn't had the greatest season so far, but this will do his position in the championship wonders out here at the 2 Hours of Silverstone. And of course, the championship leader, or was the championship leader, no longer, but still well in the championship fight. George Boothby comes around the final corner for Sidemax Motorworks, and I tell you what, Jesse, there's not going to be much between the likes of James Parker, George Boothby, and Jaroslav Honzik going into the final 3 rounds of this championship. And you know what? Roll on next week already.
Well, Ryan, I'm always excited to present the Friday Championship with you. We always seem to see crazy things happen here in RCI, and all the championships, they always come together. Congratulations to James Parker on a dominant win, but for Cody Pride and George Boothby to have podium days here, a tough track, folks. I cannot stress enough how tough of a race this has been. But for them to go 2 hours, 1 driver in the wet, changing conditions varying a little bit, nailing the strategy for Boothby, and a solid race for Pride in front of their family and friends and stream. It's just, it's pretty much icing on the cake. George Boothby doesn't care. He might as well have won this race. Is there going to be contact between? That was a wing high five, I think, between Pride and Boothby there.
That was great to see. I want to see more of that more often. Rear wing high fives.
That's an advanced technique. You don't often see. Oh, a little celebratory concussion between Boothby and Jardier. Well, here is your final standings. For Boothby, of course, he was dead last at the end of lap 2. And I don't mean 20th, folks. He was like 25th or something like that. But here is your final standings. Your podium, James Parker, Cody Pride, and George Boothby. Your podium today. Jardier and Bellasane round out your top 5. Keeble, Bouquet, Piffet, Prendergast, and Karsten, your top 10. Kavaka and Samard. Samard just could not get around Kavaka. But Clements, still Vason rebounds all the way to 14th. Frochelle, your top 15. Willamont, Azevedo, Vonka, Grant Smith, hashtag Ban Jordy had a dismal day. And Soldatov, the top 20. And your non-finishers, technically Soldatov a non-finisher, but Svenchek, Tavrayan, Shermatinsky, and I can't see who the final driver is, but those outside the top 20 all had some sort of connection issue today and were unable to finish. Ryan Gill pointed out that this championship now completely wide open as we go into round 6 next week. Well, I guess you're going to have to like, subscribe, and join us next Friday, aren't you? I think, because it is going to be an absolute fantastic finish to this championship. Not that it finishes next week. It is just now hotting up between Boothby, Parker, and Jardier. Ryan, we saw some really great racing today. Very clean racing for the vast majority of it. What do you say we come back next Friday and do it all over again somewhere else?
Yeah, we'll be leaving the rain of Silverstone behind, hopefully, and we'll be traveling out to sunnier skies, I would hope. But of course, before all of that, we do have the the third round, sorry, of the Night Owl Championship to come. Tomorrow evening, they're going to be at Brands Hatch for Night Owl. Jesse Lee will join you, and I believe you'll have Ryan Mawson in the box alongside you as you have for the first two races. And that'll be exciting to see as well. So the Night Owl crew head out to Brands Hatch. Of course, they'll be keeping it local here within the UK. Then on Monday, if you weren't fed up of British GT tracks, well, we've got more British GT for you. It's going to be Donington Park, 90-minute race on Monday for the British GT Championship. Multi-class racing on offer, GT3s and GT4s available for you to watch. Going to be super, super exciting to see that championship continue to develop. A break on Tuesday, of course, and then the Diamond Drive Cup returns for round 3. I believe that's going to be at Imola for the third round of the championship. So exciting to see that championship getting all the love from you guys as well. The Thursday championship, not live streamed, of course, unfortunately, but the GT4 exclusive championship returns on Thursday at Alton Park. That's going to be an absolute blast. 2 30-minute sprint races around there. And then, of course, next Friday, we return, and it's going to be 2 30-minute races at Misano. We head out to Italy on the lovely Mediterranean coast. But, of course, you know, the Friday championship, it's not going to be over yet. After Misano next week, we'll still have Donington Park and Suzuka to come in the Friday championship. Plenty to look forward to, and of course, plenty for you guys to enjoy. We do apologize again for the technical difficulties we encountered. We typically don't encounter them, and especially not to this level, usually. So, you know, we do apologize for that, but we did manage to soldier through it. A big thank you to all of you guys for sticking with us through those technical difficulties as well. You guys are the real MVPs. You guys are the real drivers of the day today. And, of course, we look forward to seeing all of you guys out here tomorrow. But from myself, from the student team, from Jesse Lee, from all of the guys out here that make RCI possible, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.